Yeah. Okay. It says we're
Yeah.
live. Let's see here.
Okay.
Um, okay. So I'm going to go to my Facebook page real quick and get the
Okay.
actual links. Here we go. So share to group. What is what's the name of
Alvaro's
the,
army. Alvaro's army.
okay. Forgive us, folks. We're just kind of testing everything out, and I want to make sure everybody gets the link. Um, and gets in here because they're kind of blowing up the group. Jessie has built up one heck of a prayer group very quickly with this story. It's why I wanted to reach out to her and talk to her right now because time um, is of the essence here. So
Yes. I'm here. I'm
I want
sorry.
to
I
make
had to
sure that
answer.
it got. Let me take a look at the actual group and make sure that the link showed up. I'm not a technical guru. It's just, yeah, it's there. Okay, so we're gonna wait for some people to come in. In the meantime, you all know, all of my followers know me, so I'm gonna kind of give everybody my background. I live technically in El Paso. Haven't been there much in the last year and a half. I've been traveling, but one of the places I was at last year was Laredo Medical Center, and it was kind of during the second wave. That was, which is, I mean, I think they said when it's all said and done, like 1 in 3 Laredoans will have either been deceased or infected with this. It has decimated entire families down there. I had a patient who's five, it was 5 of them who had the COVID all at the same time, and he lost all of his sons. I mean, he was the only survivor, and he was an older gentleman who was in very poor health, and his kids all passed away. So, I mean, this has decimated Laredo numerous times, and this is like not the behavior of the Laredo I knew, but all of us were travelers in the COVID ICU down there because the employees had been affected by it there. I think they had said one asymptomatic patient in the very beginning had infected like 120 employees, and
Wow.
several died. I had taken care of one. It was really sad. Um, and this really affected them to the point of it affected patient care there. When we had got there, the RTs weren't even going in the room, and the tubes weren't being moved, and they had worn into the lip because they wouldn't do tracheostomies on patients, which we normally do within 7 to 10 days. If it's going to be a long-term thing, it's more comfortable for the patient. There's less trauma to the trachea. It usually heals over very well. And it's a comfort thing. And it was eroding into their lips. My girlfriend and I, who are RTs, hey guys, um, from the U, those are my Michigan people. But it was really sad. And we spent like our first few weeks there, um, trying to heal those wounds. And I didn't have a single surviving patient off of a ventilator until I hit San Antonio last month. That's how long I had waited for somebody to not be traumatized with a vent. And I did not have a positive experience with the doctors there. They don't sedate the patients properly. They're completely asynchronous with the vent, which causes them more damage because they're all clamped down. They're not managed properly. And sedation in San Antonio, where I just left, they did a beautiful job medically. They're trying every medication that we possibly can. They are willing to listen to any ideas. They're being managed with sedation properly. They're really doing a stellar job. And I'm not seeing that everywhere I go, and it's impairing patient outcomes in an already severely decimated community. Like everybody's traumatized at this point. And this story here with Jessie, her husband is kind of being held hostage. So, Jesse, I'm going to turn it over to you and just let you introduce yourself for my people, and just start from the beginning about,
It's
where,
a lot.
you think honey, this is your platform tonight. We want to hear your story. I cried for several hours last night. My heart was breaking for this poor girl because she is the kind of patient advocate that we wish everybody had behind them. And to be impaired on seeing him due to somebody's personal opinion on what you're putting on social media, which is, this is what we couldn't do for you guys in the beginning. We couldn't tell your stories of your family members because it's a HIPAA violation, and you
Right.
couldn't be there to tell their stories. And we kind of, when I got to New Jersey and I was looking at everybody just dying on me out there. It was just unreal. And I'm like, these people are dying alone. My first patient I took care of, I looked at the monitor, and when you've been there enough times, you just know when the end is going to be very close. And I walked in the room and I grabbed the gentleman's hand and I told him he wasn't going to die alone. And he flatlined like immediately after it. I'm like, oh God, this is going to
My
be a long,
goodness.
yeah. So that kind of made me really miss the family because they're not here to help
Right.
tell everybody, because this is serious. It does affect people, but what we need to figure out is who is most at risk and protect those people and allow people their medical freedoms with up to date, accurate, and complete information to make those decisions for themselves. And we're not getting all of that. We're being censored. There's limited information. The data is misconstrued, and people are confused. They're traumatized. They're frustrated. And I try to put an end to that. And we need to bring the human part of patient care back to the bedside so families can tell their story. And apparently, is it just one individual at the hospital, or is it a collective group that has taken an issue with you posting to social media?
I would say I only have one person for me. Everyone else is against. That's what it feels like. And today kind of solidified that for me. Today's
Today,
experience.
yeah.
Yeah, it was
So
a very hard day.
when did he originally get sick?
Okay, so he was technically hospitalized in the midnight hours between August 9th and 10th. We had called an ambulance because he was gasping for air. We had both had COVID at the same time, except he had on. I'm sorry if you hear little baby noises. I have my
Oh no,
newborn
you don't
with
need to
me.
apologize for any of that.
She's
Not at
noisy.
all.
um,
No, it's completely okay.
so we both had COVID. We have 4 children. We have our newborn Penelope, our 2-year-old Ophelia, our 6-year-old Noah B, and our 7-year-old Quentin, who's also deaf. But he's my stepson. I love him like he's mine. I call him my son. He lives in Austin with his mama. So here in this house we have 3 kids, 24/7. And then Quentin comes whenever it's his every other weekend. But we had made Quentin stay away because we got sick. Alvaro was sick for 2 weeks longer than I was. And he thought it was just allergies because it was not severe. There were no major symptoms, just a stuffy nose and some sneezing. Then when I noticed I had a fever about, I can't remember. I want to say the week before that Wednesday. So whenever that Monday was, my fever was about 101, 102, and I never get a fever ever. So I knew something was up. So the next day I had both Alvaro and I go get tested. He tested positive, I tested negative, but I had all the symptoms. And they said it could either be a false negative or it's you just don't have enough of the virus in you to be detected yet. So come back in a week to get retested. But we both started on the regiment right away to try to kick this thing in the butt. And we both took ivermectin. We both took steroids. We both took.
Let me see. Hang on, because there appears I keep getting a message when I keep trying to post that link. The preview my profile feature is temporarily disabled. Let me get the YouTube link real quick, and that way there's a backup here. Hang on.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Yep, it's right here. So hang on. We're gonna.
No problem.
I've got it right here. Just give me a second. Copy. Yep. So let's just here. We'll go with YouTube.
No problem.
Okay, I'm posting it now. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, let me give it to you because it keeps telling me that there's something disabled with the whole thing. It's something with the lovely Facebook censorship.
Can I share this?
You can share the YouTube link, and all the stuff and all the comments will show up in our chat box, and we'll be able to see everything. Okay. Just let me get the
yes.
There we go. Let me do this.
Time out.
Time out. Freaking technology. Gotta love it. Okay, I'm gonna send it to you in Messenger.
Yes.
Let me.
Trying to be the
And well, the
best
stream sounds
multitasker.
wonderful because we're echoing in my ears, and it sounds great. So I am
Good.
trying to mute the screen here so I don't have to. Okay, hear both of us in the background, but that way I can come
Right.
over here to Messenger and drop it to you.
Penelope.
This is when you know that Facebook is shadow banning you.
Right? Oh
You
my
speak up
goodness.
about the truth too much. We can't have people like hearing humans' stories, you know.
Yeah.
So let's try it that way. And then they can
Okay.
come to the YouTube because it says I'm getting more subscribers in here. Yeah. So there are people watching through YouTube. So I'm gonna pay attention to the YouTube analytics over here
Okay.
too.
Great.
Just to yeah. So we'll wait for there's a lot more people coming in. So we're gonna give it just a few
Okay.
minutes.
Okay.
I'm watching the count go up on YouTube. So that definitely worked. Hi guys, sorry about the delay. Facebook has some kind of feature disabled and there's no way to access it. It just says it's temporarily disabled. Please check back later. So this is why I do multiple platforms, but we are definitely getting some more viewers in. And for those who are just joining us, I will start one more time. I had a viral video from the front lines. I've been in several magazines, interviewed by the news because I've kind of spoken up. I am not anti-vaccine. I am not anti-masking. I'm just saying let's use it in the right sense. And I don't want to hear any political statements. This is not what we're here for. Jessie does not need that stress tonight. I am not going to deal with it. It is stressing me the hell out watching it happen. So we're going to listen to her story and what she's dealing with at Laredo Medical Center. And we're going to show some compassion and human empathy. And anybody who does anything otherwise is gone because I have no tolerance for anybody's crap at this point in the game. So, everybody's commenting about Penelope. So, yeah.
Penny's here.
So,
She wants to party.
yep. Your guys are welcome. So yeah, we are getting some more people here. So yeah, awesome. Like I said, this is why you go to multiple platforms. But so you go ahead, Jessie, and go ahead and start just
From the
like from
top.
how long you guys got sick, and we'll just go from there.
Okay. So Alvaro was hospitalized between the midnight hours of 9 and 10 for the night of the 10th. We had been sick together for the week previously, or at least we had been diagnosed with COVID, and we had been getting treatment for it. We got medicine. We got everything the same. The only difference was he was sick for about 2 weeks longer than I was because he thought it was just allergies. It was just a runny, stuffy nose and some sneezing. And it wasn't until I got a fever that I made us go get tested. And his comorbidity is that he has asthma and I do not, which is a big one. But we did the same vitamin regimen. We took all the same meds. We took ivermectin. We took prednisone. I can't pronounce that right. Yeah, I think you got muted. I can't hear you.
Oh, yep. Prednisone. Yeah, that's one of the
That.
important steroids that helps reduce inflammation. And for people who just want to go out, and I just want to give some medical advice here. There's everybody who just wants a steroid right away. There has been no medical evidence shown that early use of a steroid is beneficial. You really want to wait till it kind of progresses to inflammation so it can actually work. It's not going to, work on something like that and it's actually shown to be detrimental. So don't just go running out and I want a prescription for everything, So it sounds like you guys were getting symptomatic that it was causing some difficulty. So that was
actually his oxygen level dropped to the 80s. So we went to go check, and then that's when we got all the meds, and we bought a little oximeter, and we checked our O2 levels like every hour. And I was, for some reason, fine within the 95 to 100 range, and he was in the 80s, high 80s, I guess, to 90s. And my sister, who's a nurse practitioner, was the one saying, you gotta go. Like if it goes below 90 again, you gotta go to the hospital. You can't wait. So we called the ambulance because once he heard you got to go to the hospital, he had a panic attack. Now, that in itself causes a problem when you're gasping for air already. And that's going to come into play in what I feel was a very important medical error made later. So he had a panic attack and his O2 went down again because they didn't wait. The ambulance didn't wait for it to pass. They took him immediately to Laredo Medical Center. And once he was admitted, or not admitted, once he got there, he stayed in an ER bed for 3 days because they didn't have any ICU beds.
Yeah. We just don't. It's very common, unfortunately.
Sorry, you're going to look at my fan for a second, Penelope.
It's okay. You are having to deal with life on top of your husband fighting for his. So do you not need to apologize for any of that?
I know. I just feel bad. Okay. Thank you. So once he was hospitalized, they put him into the ICU immediately. Or once the 3 days passed in the ER, he managed really well on a BiPAP. And within about a week, he was on the BiPAP for about a week, and then the following week he was only on the oxygen mask. He didn't need the BiPAP anymore. He was doing really, really well.
Oh, wow.
However, he was becoming more active. So he was, trying to get up and all that. And I think
overdid it.
Well, I think we all thought he threw a clot because COVID patients are known for throwing blood clots. And when my sister originally asked, I asked for the list of meds, and so did she. She was kind of his provider.
Yeah.
So she asked for the list of meds, and an anticoagulant was not on there, which could be a major error. Now, she didn't really mention it until that day when we found out he was intubated, because she panicked. She went back into all of her things, all of her notes.
I will tell you that very few patients there were, and that was one of the things, if you go back on my videos, and my followers know that I had said when I went to New Jersey, from New Jersey directly to Laredo that same week when I ended, my patients up in Jersey were all on heparin drips. And there was very few patients in Laredo at that time last year that were on any kind of anticoagulant. And we know at this point that this is endotheliitis. It's an inflammation of the blood vessels. People are prone to clots. And there's a lot of research done using heparin and stuff like that now. So to not be staying up to date with recommendations like that,
it's vital, definitely.
Yeah, it is.
So on August the 28th, Alvaro had FaceTimed me and the kids at 3:08 p.m. And you're going to hear a lot of numbers, and because I'm very meticulous about what has happened, because nothing makes sense. So at 3:08 p.m., he FaceTimes me. He's sitting up, he's eating, and I am not unaware. I'm aware that COVID patients can turn on a dime. However, when I got a phone call, we hung up about 3:30. I got a phone call at 7:20, and it was the ICU nurse asking for consent to do a central line. And I said, I'm sorry, what? Central line for what? She says, oh, your husband's been intubated. And I said, excuse me? What happened? Why wasn't I called? What is going on? And she said, oh, nobody told you? And I said, no, ma'am. What is happening over there? Why is he intubated? What happened? He was fine. He was sitting up and eating when I spoke to him last. So she said, I'm going to get a doctor to call you back. And it was very frazzled. She hung up. And it seemed like for the next 3 hours, nobody had a response. Nobody had an answer. So once we did get a phone call back, I have pretended like I have two heads. Anytime I get a phone call, I immediately call my sister, obviously with consent. I asked, is it okay if I bring my sister on the line? She knows the correct medical questions to ask. I don't. Yeah. And most of the people say yes. Not all of them do. So I brought her on the line, and she's saying, what happened? You don't just go from an oxygen mask to intubation. Like, what happened? And they we got two very contradicting stories from two different doctors, which is the first red flag that my family experienced. The first doctor said, he was intubated, but we had a very calm, consented conversation. He said, yes, he wanted to be intubated. And, you know, he was very relaxed. He was calm. It wasn't scary. He wasn't, you know, that was his story. Now, when I said, wait a second, doctor, my husband told me he never wanted to be intubated. And we talked about this in depth, that he never wanted to be intubated. So can I see where he signed the consent that he
And they
was going
never
to be intubated?
did they ever fill out a do not intubate form?
Well, they have been denying me access to everything. Records, charts, scans, everything. So that comes later. That me asking for everything comes later. So I asked if he signed or to show me the signature. He hangs up, has a different doctor call me, and the doctor says, oh, it was too emergent, there was no time. He verbally consented. And I said, I'm sorry, the other doctor just told me it was a calm situation where he happily consented to the tube. So what is it? Is it calm and consented, or was it too emergent, there was no time? Because in either scenario, I believe I would have been called by my husband or whoever was supposed to call me.
And we usually, if they're talking and they're able, I mean, they don't usually crash without a warning. And it's very typical that once we have a crisis like that, we do call a family member. I mean, it's not that that's really unusual behavior, and to not tell somebody that we emergently intubated their loved one who's next of kin, because we really want to confirm DNR status. Do you want us to go through compressions if they code? Because it really is traumatizing to the body, as you well experienced this morning. And then he requires surgery that there's no access to today that he desperately needs. So these behaviors are very detrimental.
Yeah. So I still stand by what I've said from the start. If it's going to save his life, people are criticizing me, saying, so what, you didn't want him to live? No, if it was going to save his life, do it, but call me. Tell me what's happening. You know, that's just, hello. We all know the statistics of what happens when people are put on a ventilator. It's not great. You know, and if it was a consented conversation, I guarantee you my spouse would have said, I need to call my wife.
Yeah.
And if it was emergent, you all know how scary it is once somebody is on the vent. I'm sure the spouse should be called. If he's still talking, at least give them that courtesy to say goodbye, you know?
Yeah.
So that neither of those things happened. And since then, it has been a living hell trying to get any doctor to talk to me, how to get any information. My sister very quickly asked, okay, what were his ABGs if he needed to be intubated? Did you skip a step? Why did you go straight from the mask to the vent? What happened to BiPAP? They never got the ABGs. They just intubated. I think by your silence, you and I both know what that means.
Yeah, because I'm going to tell you the first thing that a doctor wants is an ABG before we decide to intubate. Because we learn a lot by the ABG, and what we're talking about is an arterial blood gas. People hate to see respiratory. I will tell you that the needles have gotten smaller and less painful, but we actually have to go into the artery, and that's one of my specialties. Is I'm a vampire at night for people's blood. But it lets us know the oxygen and gas, because oxygen and carbon dioxide are a gas. So when we talk about arterial blood gases, we're looking for the level of carbon dioxide and oxygen and the bicarb. And what it does is it regulates your pH. And by looking at that, we can tell what's the cause. Sometimes it's a respiratory condition. Other times, diabetes, like a diabetic ketoacidosis, will cause certain respiratory issues because the body uses the CO2 to regulate what's going on, to balance it out. And we can tell a lot, and we can control some with the ventilator. Other stuff we can control with medication or something. If he's just hyperventilating because he's freaking out, that's something we can help alleviate with this, out of hand is great when people
Exactly.
are so
So
oxygen starved.
my first question after Amanda said, "What are his ABGs?" and they said we didn't take any. I said, "Was he having a panic attack? Because my husband suffers from anxiety. And did you mistake an anxiety attack for respiratory distress?" And they could not give me the numbers to prove that he was in respiratory distress. Now, they did say 12 days later, I'm going to say that again. They did tell me 12 days later, because I asked which doctor intubated, they couldn't tell me. I asked what his blood gases were, didn't take them. I asked how long was he on BiPAP before you moved to the intubation, couldn't tell me the timeline. So 12 days later is when I got the name of the doctor who intubated, and that he was on the BiPAP for a short time before being moved to intubation. But again, on BiPAP, he was having more anxiety because that's not a very comfortable mask. We know that. And then I asked, did you give him anything for anxiety while he was on that? They said, well, we gave him some, I can't remember the name, but it wasn't, I can't think right now. I'm sorry. I'm so tired.
It's okay. No, you're fine.
It wasn't sedative, like a strong sedative. It was just something not strong. I can't remember the name, but Amanda is my sister, and she works with COVID patients. She saves them every single day. She prescribes everything, once they're from the point that they're diagnosed. And now currently she's dealing with patients who have vaccine injuries from the COVID vaccine too. So her entire caseload is COVID based, and she is an amazing doctor. She's a nurse practitioner, well, doctor, whatever, doctor and nurse practitioner, whatever that is. She's gonna kill me for not knowing all her letters.
Well, it's probably a nurse practitioner, but I'm going to tell you that one of the pulmonologists there uses a nurse practitioner, and I dealt with her quite a bit. She would have a different idea about how to run the vent, and he wouldn't let us. Your husband should have been in a mode called pressure control ventilation. They are trying to stuff volume of air into a very stiff lung. You cannot do that, or you wind up with the type of injuries that your husband has. And they resisted us big time there with the RTs. Now, I almost practically choked out a FEMA RT that showed up, because when you get these assignments through Crucial, which I hate these people, it's not usually the employees. It's the fact that it's the company not vetting the people that they're sending. They just take them on their word. They're signing up to chase COVID cash, and they're making critical errors with my patients. And it's like, this is not what we need right now. Any fluctuation and stability with these patients, because it goes from good to bad very, very quickly. And doing anything to antagonize that this is the result.
Well, so after we found out that none of the right steps were followed, or if they were, it was a very short time, I asked them, did you wait until the anxiety attack passed before intubation? Like, why wasn't I called? I still don't understand. And I've been getting a lot of criticism from people saying it doesn't matter, it saved his life. Yes, but it could also take his life, and I deserved a chance to speak to my spouse. Hold on, Penelope.
Yeah,
she's getting fussy. Sorry.
It's okay.
So I know. Penny, stop. You're okay. So, it turned from me speaking to my husband to a very quick goodbye. I didn't even say I love you when we hung up, because I knew I was going to talk to him later once the kids were asleep, to, oh, your husband's been intubated, we need a central line. And I said, okay, I consent. What the hell's going on? And from that point forward, from the minute I asked, who's the doctor who intubated? What happened? I don't understand. He was fine. Why isn't he on an anticoagulant? Did he throw a clot? It has been nothing but resistance from the hospital. And not really from the nursing staff or the doctors that are there on the daily, but resistance from the attendings, from the pulmonologists especially, and from administrative policies that everybody has to enforce now that they were not enforcing beforehand. So now, after intubation, my sister said, can we do a CT scan of his chest? Because I think he might have thrown a clot if he declined that quickly. You know, he was moving more. He was doing physical therapy for the first time that week. He was getting up and down a lot more. And if he's more active, you're more prone to a clot. They refused. They would not do a CT scan because they said that the contrast would hurt his kidneys. But when we asked about everything, his urine output, everything was fine. Everything was okay to have a scan, and they just didn't do it. Now, I was, from what I was told, even if he had a clot, nothing would have been changed. They started treating him immediately once he was intubated, like he already had a clot. So he was put on blood thinners immediately, and that's when we started asking, wait a second, he wasn't on blood thinners already? That's not protocol?
Hang on a
Like,
second. I want to pin this comment here.
okay.
And actually, like, hospital staff are overwhelmed with patients. They don't have time to call every family with updates. Yeah, we do. Yes, we do. And we usually do it after our first rounds and we do assessments. And we usually prefer for the family to call it night. And this young lady has, how many days has it been now since you've had somebody answer the phone? 6. That's not acceptable. Yes, we do. And when it's critical changes is when we reserve the time to call. We don't, but we usually will do Zoom calls and FaceTime. So this is BS, and you can kiss yourself goodbye because you are now banned from this because
and I don't care.
I am not going to put up with that.
Unvaccinated
His status
or not,
doesn't matter because I am seeing this happen with both. And the major thing that matters is pre-existing conditions. So
right.
That's what matters. His vaccine status does not freaking matter. I am seeing both. 15% of people in Michigan with the vaccine are dying. So I don't want to hear it. And we're not here for this right now. And this is exactly one of the problems that you are having from one of the doctors and why, you believe that his care is being affected. So we're not going to have you here. And if you can't even put your real name and an image on there, obviously you're a troll and we're not going to deal with that here.
Amen. So after we saw that he wasn't on a blood thinner until he was intubated, a lot of things happened. We couldn't get the pulmonologist to call us with what's going to happen. We heard he was trying to pull out the tube. He was breathing over the tube. His O2 sats were really great and his vent settings were really low. That could have been managed on BiPAP. So we kept asking, please extubate, please extubate. And the doctor kept saying, no, we're not going to extubate. And it just made no sense whatsoever. I truly feel like they misinterpreted his panic attack for respiratory distress. And then they were too proud to say, oh, we made a mistake. So they continued on the vent and it made him worse and worse and worse until he blew his first pneumo. However, before that, I called an administrative meeting with the pulmonologist, the attending, intensivist, I think is what they call him, intensivist. And then the risk management officer was there and the chaplain showed up and the CNO, the chief nursing officer, because we demanded answers. So they were all there in a boardroom. Me, my father, and my mother-in-law showed up. They showed up to this administrative meeting completely unprepared. No labs, paperwork, anything, no charts, no scans, nothing. And I'm sorry, but that seems a little intentional to me when we're here to ask questions.
Yeah, when my friend was passing away in El Paso, it was completely not COVID related. But I went to the family meeting at my old hospital with them, and the doctors pulled up the patient chart and pictures so they could show the family, what had been accomplished in surgery with this pressure sore, and things like that. So that's completely inappropriate.
They had access to the computer there. They had it up on like the projector screen. They just didn't pull it up. And when I called my sister and I put her on speaker to ask her questions, she said, okay, what are his ABGs? That's always her first question because she wants to know how he's oxygenating. They said, oh, we don't have that in front of us. She very quickly let them know. So nobody can print out a paper? She's really blunt and we love her for it.
Oh
And
my God.
because of that, they did not like her. But she has been a bedside nurse for 10 years. Part of those 10 years, she's an RN, 10 years. She worked at the bedside. She was a flight nurse, life flight nurse. She was
And I'm going to
trauma
tell
line.
you, to be a life flight nurse right now, you really have to know your shit. So she knows what
Yeah.
she's talking about.
Yeah, she's done it all. And
Yeah.
she worked New York Presbyterian Trauma Level 1 Trauma Center as a trauma nurse. You know, she's seen it all. So now that she's a nurse practitioner, now she's dealing with COVID patients day in and day out, and she has all the right questions to ask, and we got nothing but pushback. And that is when Dr. Yanis had called me before this meeting and said, basically, your husband's dying. And this is what he said verbatim. Your husband's dying. He's going to die. Prepare yourself. And I said, I'm sorry. Hold on. This is the first time we're speaking. And I had been trying to get a hold of you for over 3 days. And this is the first time you're calling me. And now you're telling me my husband's dying when his organs are not failing, when he's oxygenating well, and his vent settings are very low. And I said, what do you mean he's dying? And I told him, can you tell me the vent settings right now? And he says, I'm not going to tell you those numbers because you won't understand them and neither will a nurse practitioner. I'm sorry.
He's got a nurse practitioner managing his freaking vent.
And I said, excuse me, do not insult my intelligence. Any mother who has had their child in the NICU knows vent settings, first of all. Second of all, then he said, in that phone call, he said, well, your husband's not vaccinated, so he did this to himself. And I said, excuse me? And I said, it doesn't matter whether he's vaccinated or not. He's now in your ICU. Treat him to the best of your ability. Now give me the number for the vent, please. So during that administrative meeting, I brought that up and I said, I do feel like my husband is being treated differently because of his bias, Dr. Yanis's bias to unvaccinated patients. And he goes, it's not bias if it's fact, in front of everyone in the administration. And nobody said a thing. Nobody said that's so inappropriate, that's unprofessional, nothing. They all just looked embarrassed and shocked and shook their heads, but let him talk down to me. And then I would say, Dr. Yanis, I'm just asking for answers. He responds with whatever. So you can imagine how much confidence he instilled in me to treat my husband. We call him Dr. Doom in my family because he already has, he's going to die on his mind before he even met him. Yeah. You know, before he understood what, he's 35 years old, previously very healthy. The only thing he had was asthma. You don't know that. You're not God. You don't get to go around saying, he's going to die. And when I tell you, every time I spoke to him after that, it was the exact same conversation and with very rude comments towards me. Because I would say, okay, can we try something else instead of just waiting? Here's my only criticism about his treatment with my husband. There has been a pattern. Every time he touches that damn vent, every time, he's a night owl, he does it in the evening, my husband declines. Every time. And I have been documenting everything. The followers on my page, in my prayer group, know every time Yanis touches that vent, the very next hour, 2 hours, morning, we get, Alvaro's struggling. There's something wrong. every time. So what we have consistently seen is that Giannis has put the vent settings at a very high PEEP, very high everything. Everything's just too high.
And we
And he
learned
was
very
already
early
oxygenating
on.
well.
Yeah, and we learned very early on because what we tried to do in the beginning of this is manage it like ARDS. And we very
Right.
quickly learned that trying to do that was actually causing damage. So we really use a conservative strategy with these patients, and we try not to use those high pressures. Um, Peeps of 15, that's really not common. Not at all.
Right.
And
So
that's really damaging. And how many pneumos did he have before this episode
to,
this morning?
as of today, it's 4, but there were 3 before that. And as
Yeah.
every time he threw a pneumo, my sister would ask Dr. Giannis, please lower the PEEP, please lower the setting. And he would say, no, no, no. And I don't understand why he's not understanding that clearly my husband's body can't tolerate that high of a PEEP.
What have they told you about the other doctors that you have asked to care for him? Because I know there's a few
So
that when they manage him, they're doing well. I understand.
okay, so when we first got the unprofessionalism from Dr. Giannis, I asked immediately, I want him off the case. He's Dr. Doom, and I want a healing energy in my husband's room. I want a healing
Yeah.
doctor, not one that is already expecting him to die. Sorry, I'm not going to have that. The hospital said there's nothing we can do. You're stuck with him. I have been asking for what is today? The 16th?
Yes.
I have been asking for 16 days now to remove Dr. Giannis from his case. And
And
they
you
keep
tried to
saying,
transfer him out, and what's happened there?
we've tried everything. Basically, we had all our ducks in a row. My sister and I did the work of 4 people. Seriously, LMC should cut us a paycheck. We did their jobs for them. We called the transfer center when we weren't supposed to, but we did it because LMC was doing anything. And then we were just missing that last dot of the I, and we missed the bed. Somebody else got it before us because they had to wait for the hospital. And then the hospital comes back saying, oh, there wasn't a doctor to accept. I spoke to the doctor. They were waiting for us. I spoke to the doctor over there at UT Southwestern. So nothing is adding up. Nothing. The only thing that I am seeing is that when I ask for charts, I'm iced out. When I ask to see scans, I'm iced out. One time that I don't know what happened. I'm trying to remember. I had called in the middle of the day. I was stuck at home with my kids because I didn't have a nanny that day. I am a mother. I can't go every day. They had said, oh, we're not allowed to give you vitals over the phone. It's a violation of HIPAA. When they had been giving me vitals for 4 days prior to that. So I said, I'm sorry, who is this? And the nurse told me her name. And I said, I want to speak to your supervisor. She transferred me to the ICU nursing director. And he told me verbatim, word for word, oh, it's a violation of HIPAA. We are no longer going in. And I said, excuse me, I'm the next of kin. If you know I can't go in person daily, I need updates.
And
I
like
need
I
them.
said in my post, I have had people from Providence and El Paso. They have a ability to actually log on and live track their loved ones' vitals because it's some kind of comfort for them from home. Providence has really done a lot there to help bring the family some peace, of
I've
mind.
continued to tell administration 98% of your headache from me will go away if I can see his charts, so I can see what's happening. So the CNO, the chief nursing officer, says, I go, can I have access to his patient portal? She goes, oh, it doesn't exist. We don't have one. It is
Baloney.
on their website. It is
It
on their
is.
website.
And I'm going to tell you right now, there's an option on the chart because I know the charting system that they use to hide things from the patient's portal.
Mm-hmm. So it took,
And that's what they're doing. They're hiding the
yeah,
entire chart from the portal.
right.
At
And
the
I
click
think
of
it
a
all
button.
stems back to that night he got intubated. But I had to fight tooth and nail since August the 28th to get access to the patient portal. They finally got it done 2 days ago, and it is still blank on day 3. There is nothing on there, and he's been hospitalized for over 37 days now. It is blank. Not even his name is on it. So what does that tell you? All I have asked for is communication. That is it. I've never asked for special treatment. I've never asked. I just want somebody to tell me what the hell is going on. Now, Dr. Yanis only speaks to me once every 8 days. Once. In a span of 16 days, I spoke to him once. And he told me, my husband's dying, prepare yourself. And then he lived another 8 days.
Okay, we have another like internet pain in my ass right now. I want to address something here. I mean, he's asking good medical questions, but he's being a dick in some ways, and he's making me a little irritated here. Like, yes, we did every flu season. And I had just gotten out of a bad one in El Paso with several people with EVALIs all of a sudden from, I don't know if it was a bad batch of marijuana cartridges, but everybody had these EVALI vaping injuries. I had major ARDS in my flu patients that year. So we had just gotten through the Walmart shootings in El Paso, and then a really crappy flu season, and then freaking COVID hit. So yes, we did. And we see these high peeps every flu season. And we were using bi-level, and bi-level uses 2 different pressures. There's been a controversial evidence on whether or not it benefits these patients. We really don't know much at this point, but we know that high pressures are not good, and we try to avoid that strategy. And it seems that every time he makes these changes, he goes down. And he went from apparently a pH of 7.46 on his blood gas. He's alkalotic, and normal is 7.4. So anything above 7.45 is going to be alkalotic, and it was just mild. His PO2 was a little bit low, but I don't know the vent settings when it was drawn. So that's important information for you to have if the doctor's not giving it to you, because it would be nice to know what vent changes he made based on that blood gas that drove him down to a 6.9. And I'm going to tell you right now, and any medical professional will, a 6.9 is not life-sustaining, unfortunately. And based on what happened this morning, and then when you went to try to visit today, the behavior is...
it's harassment at this point. It's cruel. It's inhumane. Today was the scariest day of our lives since we've been married, you know, and sorry. When the nurse today, the charge nurse, knew that we were coming in a rush, I brought my cell phone with me, my bag, and I said, I'm going to stay here all day. I need my bag. Vanessa, the risk management officer, walked us in. She was fine with it. She said, yep, you're going to stay all day. You can have your bag. Okay, thank you. She said nothing about my phone. I went in there. The nurse, we were praying over him, me, my mother-in-law, and my sister-in-law. We were praying over him. We were crying. We were laughing. We were remembering silly stories, trying to make Alvaro feel calm, trying to make him feel like he's part of the conversation and not just an eavesdropper. And I wanted to play my children's laughter for him, their voices for him to remember, their voices to hold on to fight for. And I wanted my kids to FaceTime with him just in case, you know, just in case this is the last time they speak to him. Now, the charge nurse knew I had my phone all morning. She saw me playing music. I asked her to get my charger from my bag for my cell phone, and she did it without it. Oh, yeah, I'll get it. Don't worry. She got it. Then I posted a picture of the monitors on our prayer group because I didn't understand what the numbers meant. So I was asking someone to interpret it because the nurses have a gag order from the doctors not to tell me anything except numbers, but not what it means or not what labs are, nothing. So the doctor wouldn't come see me or answer his phone call. So I put it on the group. That's why I started that group, for answers, because I was desperate for answers. And I asked, hey, what do these numbers mean? About 30 minutes after that, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law left to go get lunch. My sister-in-law was very pregnant, so she needed to feed the little baby. And I was left alone, and I was praying, and I was singing, and I was taking a video for our deaf son, Quentin. just in case Quentin didn't get home from school in time to FaceTime him. This is when that nurse comes in. You're gonna have to give me that phone. And I said, no, ma'am. And I said, this is cruel. You know, you're gonna try to take my phone right now. She says, you know, the policy. And I go, I don't care about the policy. The policy is dumb. This is life and death right now. The policy is dumb and it's heartless. And then she went on to say that she wouldn't want to have her picture taken if that was her. And I go, well, thank God it's not you. This is my spouse. She says, I'm trying to protect him. And I go, so who? I said, you have only known Alvaro since the tube was down his throat. I have known him longer, and I know he would want his children to understand what happened, not that he abandoned them one day. You know, we have very young children. They need to process the fact that he's sick. So this was the hill she chose to die on, and say, no, if you don't give me your phone, I'm going to have you escorted out. I'm going to have you escorted out of here. And I said, you can try, but I'm not giving you my phone. Now, mind you, this is after being harassed by this administrative staff for weeks. I used to be able to take in my phone. Things were fine. I started asking questions. And then they confiscated my phone, my keys, and my notebook to take notes on, to ask, you know, write things down and ask questions for the doctor. Then the next day I came back and they made me leave my phone in the car because I had posted that it's illegal to take my property. It is. They have no right to do that. So the next day, instead of taking my property, they said, you got to leave it in your car or we're going to deny you your right to see your spouse. What the hell? Then after that, I had to fight the administration to let me bring in a notebook to write down notes, to ask the doctors questions. Now, mind you, when I'm in there and the doctors are there, I don't know what questions to ask because I'm not allowed to call my sister, because I'm not a medical person and I didn't have access to my phone. And I asked if it's just bullshit. It's bullshit. They're making every excuse to make sure that I'm alone and I don't have support and I'm not posting my husband's status. Why? Why can't I post my husband's status? If I'm asking for prayers, I have every right to do that. I'm not employed by the hospital. HIPAA does not apply to me. I'm his spouse. And whatever information I get, it's my prerogative to share with whomever. Now, we have go ahead.
For those people who don't know, and I'm going to share the House bill here so other people can access it, our governor passed a law allowing access to the patients that we've pretty much been holding in solitary confinement.
HB 2211. Yep.
Yep.
And as soon as they pass that bill, I am only allowed to go for 30 minutes a day. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, well, you're lucky you get to go at all. I know I am. I know that's a privilege. I'm very blessed, but it is law, and you cannot deny that from me. Now, I could understand if I tried smuggling in a weapon or something, but it was a phone. You know, I just had a child. I'm 4'11", and they had 3 huge security guards intimidate me, take my things, and escort me to the ICU like I'm a prisoner.
That's insane. That is absolutely insane.
It is. And it's inhumane at this point because we all know my husband's status. You know? And today, when she said she was going to have me escorted out, I said, fine, take my phone. It is more important for me to be with my spouse than... Sorry, whenever you're
no,
crying
you're
so much
fine. You take your time. No, take your time.
I hate it. Okay, so then I gave her my phone and I stayed in there and I asked for a pen and paper. She didn't give me the pen and paper. I had them call the risk management officer again, Vanessa. She got me the pen and paper. And she said, okay, you can use this to take your notes. And I wrote down everything, because he was so unstable at that point. The lowest blood pressure was 69/30. They pushed pressors. Then it got all the way up to the 260s, 280s over 150, like crazy numbers. and they're just chasing him, and they won't let me have my damn phone to call loved ones, to ask
Yeah,
questions.
because Levo is probably the main one that he's on. That's the main presser that most of us use to start. Then we go to the other ones to add to it to maintain pressure. But some people get really sensitive to any, just like I've had patients that were just on a tiny, tiny dose, but if you took them off, they would just plummet. So if they just started the pressors right away, they could be trying to figure out where his happy zone is at. But when we have to start chasing blood pressures at that point, things are pretty damn critical.
Right. So all this is happening. I get a phone call from Dr. Yanez that I miss because they have my phone. And Dr. Yanez has been the hardest doctor to get a hold of. The hardest.
That's convenient.
Right. And not only that, but I missed a phone call from the nanny too, who's taking care of my newborn at home, my kids. I need access to my phone. I have children. I have a life outside that hospital. And I can disagree till I'm blue in the face, and people will still say, they'll still defend it, and it's wrong, because all those nurses are Snapchatting all day long. They are recording patients they're not supposed to be. Come on, let's get real. All the staff can have a phone, but the patients can't. And then I mean,
let's look at TikTok here. We have all these people at work doing TikToks, so come on.
Well, no, not only that, I got sent from the website. Somebody copied from the website where it says, LMC will provide a Zoom call to stay connected to your family. We encourage family members to FaceTime, to do WhatsApp. It's on the website. You encourage family members to do that, but you take it away just from me? They didn't confiscate anyone else's things. This same kid, like an 18-year-old kid, has been going in at the same visiting hours that I am, and he takes his full backpack in, but I have to give them my phone.
We will FaceTime in every patient room when we do rounds, because when I was there, it was policy not to have the providers other than the ones at bedside, the respiratory and the nurses, to mitigate, overuse of PPE and all these other crazy things. But they weren't even seeing the patients. They were seeing them through a monitor at bedside. Right.
So all these crazy rules that they're making and changing daily. I mean, if you're going to make a policy day by day, you have an obligation to call the family before visiting hours and let them know something has changed. And they didn't do that. They also haven't provided a patient bill of rights to the family that have intubated loved ones, because guess what? Now we're the decision makers. I continuously say, how am I supposed to make an informed medical decision, life and death decision for my spouse, if I'm not being informed? You can call me problematic, you can call me dramatic, whatever, just call me. I've been waiting for people to freaking call me. Jesus. So
I mean,
2 nights ago,
Blake's
I was
right.
told by
This is
Dr.
almost an
Yanez.
impossible situation, and it's really added to the problem that we've tried to alleviate with the first 2 go rounds of this. We really left the family out, and that's the one group of people we need on our side. But there's so much division now in the media and conflict that now that support that we were needing is just, it's turned into something completely different, and everybody's personal opinion is affecting patient care.
And when I say, I've been treated terribly, I'm not attacking the staff that has actually been saving my husband's life. You need to understand that it is 102 of you versus me, just one person. I had Dr. P, I can't say his real name, so we call him Dr. Peruvian, before he gave me any information, said, you are not allowed to put anything I say on Facebook. And I said, excuse me? And I said, I don't
know. It's not like
you're
videoing the doctor. Here's the thing.
No, it was handwritten.
Yeah, here's the thing, that there's a big difference. If you don't give somebody permission to be videoed and shared, I understand that, but you're not asking for that. You're seriously sharing the words that he is saying to you so other people can hear because we're asking those questions. What's his ABG? What were the vent changes? And he's literally telling her you wouldn't understand.
And then I told him, I go, can we stick to medicine, please? I don't tell you what to post on your Facebook. Please don't tell me what to post on mine. And then he said, I forgot what he said. It was very douchey. And then this is the guy who works directly under Dr. Yanis. So you can see where he got his bedside manner from. Then he said, I asked him, we're just watching him circle the drain. Like, let's try something. Let's be proactive. Can we try high dose vitamins, something, vitamin C, vitamin D? And he's like, no. And I said, my sister said that maybe we should try another dose of ivermectin because she would like for him to at least have 4 doses to fight this thing instead of just letting it pass by. Now,
and I'm going to stop you right there because I'm going to stop you with the ivermectin real quick because I want to make a good point to people here because there's a lot of misinformation out there. That Rolling Stone article that said there was a bunch of overdoses in that hospital and they quoted this doctor that a gunshot victim had to be turned away. That is not true. That doctor hadn't worked at that hospital for 2 months, but they never labeled that with misinformation after Rolling Stone retracted that. And we were personally using it at the hospital I just left in San Antonio in several patients. So we do use it. Doctors are wanting and demanding to use it. So I want to stop people before they get on the horse dewormer train because we're using it, whether or not the FDA freaking agrees or not. So
right.
There is support out there.
Either way, even if it doesn't help him, it wasn't going to hurt him, So we said, can we just try? We have the right to try. Amanda keeps saying, I invoke the right to try. Let's try it. Try anything, but don't just watch him, Be proactive. And the doctor says, in the end, my word trumps yours, no matter what.
This is the God complex with some doctors that this is so aggravating to us healthcare workers who are at the patient bedside witnessing this, and our hands are literally tied. They are. There are so many wonderful ICU nurses out there, great charge. I have worked with awesome people on these front lines and just amazing people and who want to do our job. And we have some doctor like this, and that was my experience dealing with his patients, that it's just like we're causing damage. It's just like they wouldn't do art lines and they want an ABG on every single patient in the ICU, whether it's indicated or not. Being in the ICU doesn't give you an indication for an ABG. And one of these doctors, and I have to do my research back, but was fined over $1 million for prescribing unnecessary tests. And it started up again during COVID to pay for those fines.
That's crazy.
It is. This is not a good reputation.
Right. And I'm having ICU nurses on the floor secretly message me saying, please don't out me, but I am embarrassed by these doctors. I am embarrassed by the way they're treating you. I cannot believe this. They are definitely targeting you. One nurse told me that Dr. Yanis is blackballing us, telling the other physicians that we are problematic and dramatic, and that's why no other doctor wants to work with us, not to fire him. I've been trying to get him off my husband's case from the start, and no other doctor will take it over because we're being blackballed. Like, what the hell? How is this ethical? It's not. It's not by any means. And it all started because I asked for help on the internet, on Facebook, because the doctor wouldn't freaking call me. And now nurses are not allowed to give me any information, just vitals. That's it.
And that's not allowed. You should know what medications. It's just like I asked you tonight, how many pressors is he on? Because the more pressors we add, the more critical the situation, and it kind of gives you an idea of the time frame you have left to work with. Unfortunately, This is more than likely not going to wind up in a positive situation because he did go into cardiac arrest this morning. Is that correct?
No, he almost did. But
yeah, okay. So he was kind of going into a respiratory arrest type situation.
Yes. And then I forgot what she said. They gave him very quickly and then he stabilized. Epinephrine, I believe.
Yeah, epi.
Okay.
The heart rate up.
Yes. And he stabilized. And then all day it's been chasing the blood pressure. And now here's the thing, 6 nights in a row, I have not gotten an answer from anyone on the night shift at all. And I only call at certain hours. I know shift change is crazy, so I wait till
Yeah.
about 10:30, 11 p.m.
And
till
we
everybody
greatly
gets their
appreciate you
meds.
for that.
So if I don't get an answer then, I call at 2 a.m. If I don't get an answer then, I call at 4 a.m. If I don't get an answer then I call at 6 a.m. But if you answer the first time, I will only call at 10:30, and then at 4 a.m. when my daughter wakes up to have a bottle to eat. And that's
And
it.
see how
I'm
the night
not
went. Yeah.
right. I'm not problematic. I don't call every minute. I'm not that person. I just want to know how he is, what are his vitals? Is he stable? What's the vent settings? Did anything change? And that's the other issue is I have asked everybody to call me if there's a change. They put in a whole chest tube without letting me know. Now, again, of course, I want them to treat him so he's comfortable first. I'm fine with that. But call me. I didn't find out he had a chest tube until the next day. How is this okay when I'm supposed to be his voice? I'm his only advocate because he can't speak for himself.
And like you said, that hospital doesn't employ a patient advocate. It is their risk manager, quite literally.
Yeah.
And she is,
Now,
and
I will say
she,
Vanessa has been the only one on my side. She's been amazing. However, I can see where her hands are tied, and it's a conflict of interest because her interest is in the hospitals, not mine. So she will make a note of everything that happened. There was a respiratory therapist actually who was so freaking rude to me. I tried introducing myself. He grabbed a bag and said, "I'm busy," and walked away right in front of Vanessa. And Vanessa was like, "Oh my God." And I looked at her and I said, "Are you kidding me? This is the
I'm
level of
gonna,
professionalism I'm supposed to expect?"
and more than likely, I'm gonna tell you right now, and this is my issue at one of my last hospitals because this little punk, number one, was like, "You're just a respiratory therapist. You only spend 10 minutes with the patient." Never mind that I have about 11 of them on a vent and a couple on BiPAP, which is double my workload. And I am doing everything I can. And the travel therapists that we get, the quality of them and the attitudes that they have are just like this. And that's what they were using to fully staff the COVID unit there was travel. And so, because none of the RTs who are staff even want to go down there. They don't want, everybody is terrified because it ripped through the staff. And this kid, and I had told him, I'm like, "Do you know who I am?" And apparently he thought I was referring to my status as a full-time staff member. And I was not. I was quite literally referring to this platform. Like, "Do you know the voice that I have and why I do not stand for this behavior? I will speak up about this because this is the quality of care that your loved ones are getting. If they are that rude to the family, imagine how they're treating your family member. Does that make you feel good when you go home at night knowing somebody like that is taking care of your family member?"
Absolutely not, you know?
No.
And I looked at Vanessa and I said, "This is the standard that you have in this hospital." You have Dr. Yanis telling me that I'm not smart enough to know numbers, telling me that he doesn't need to give me anything. He doesn't need to call me. Then you have this doctor or this respiratory therapist literally saying, "I'm busy," and walking away while I'm trying to introduce myself since you're taking care of my spouse. You know, I understand if it's an emergent situation, you can just say, "I'm so sorry, I have an emergency, I gotta go." It takes 1 second to say that.
Yeah.
You know, it's insane how rude the staff is. And maybe I understand they've gotten a little callous over these past 18 months. I understand that. I'm not insensitive to that situation, but they cannot be insensitive to mine either.
Mm-mm. And to
This is
deny
my
you
world.
access to information, make it hard to acquire because, you know, there might be a change in code status for you. Like if he does, you know, if it's that bad, you might, some families don't want their loved one to go through any more suffering after now that they're allowed at bedside, they're really seeing how detrimental this is. I'm not, for the conspiracy theorist out there that COVID isn't real, it's very real. But I think we really need to do the science on why it's affecting certain people more. I think we need those answers before we start mandating things and having statuses. And if we figured that stuff out, people would be more comfortable with the decisions that we make in overall
You
healthcare.
know,
But with this
one of
crap
the
going on, the trust is
one of the
lost.
go ahead. Yes, and that's what I was about to say. One of the biggest issues is there's a huge amount of distrust. The doctors are afraid for whatever reason to tell me things because I think they think I'm going to put it online and then something bad is going to happen. And then I don't trust them because they don't call me, you know, but again, I would have never started doing that if they had just answered their phone in the first place. If they had just been communicative in the first place. Yeah, I got desperate because days and days went by without me knowing my husband's status. Days. And when you're intubated, that is vital.
And I'm going to tell you right now, the patients can hear under sedation. It's not like being put to sleep. I have had so many patients. I was at UMC in El Paso, which is still one of my most favorite hospitals. I love the staff there. They were all very knowledgeable, followed the rules because we were mandated to do so. And we served the poorest of the poor there. We were the only nonprofit hospital in El Paso and we were the only level 1 trauma center. And the staff there is just amazing. And so when I go other places and I see these other substandard acceptances, I'm just like baffled. I'm like, is it based on insurance status? You know, why are these patients being treated differently?
Oh, definitely. I feel like the fact that Alvaro is self-pay, that the insurance question comes into play, and I feel like he's being put on the back burner. Today, he was supposed to go into emergent surgery because he's so unstable. They made sure to take my mind is everywhere.
Okay.
The already scheduled surgeries. And if it's a scheduled surgery, that means it's not emergent, right?
And I know that a lot of states have put, like, I was very lucky to get my back surgery last year because it was during like the 1 month break that we were able to start doing surgeries again that were elective. So I got my back surgery. Then right after they shut them down again. So those really shouldn't even be, it should be on an emergent basis. And from the sound of it, your husband's is pretty damn emergent.
Right. And then I'm also getting my visitation time taken up by people trying to make things right when they mess up because of our self-pay status, because they didn't think we could pay to have him transferred. I wish everybody
Isn't it great
had an
when people
Amanda.
assume things for you without asking?
I think everybody should have an Amanda in their life. That's my sister's name. She has been such a warrior, such a fighter for Alvaro through everything, and everything she has said is going to happen if they don't stop has happened. Everything. So when we were trying to get him transferred out, they said, okay, how are you going to transfer him? And we said, air, of course. We're not going to put in an ambulance for 8 hours to Dallas, you know? So put him in an airplane or whatever. And they said, well, that's going to be $12,000 up front. My sister whipped out her credit card and paid it all for me, for my spouse. And they were kind of shocked that we did that. You know, they don't know. So just because he doesn't have insurance doesn't mean he can't pay, but they treat him like it. So they're going to make sure to take care of the cases that are going to fill their pockets first. Or so they think.
And that's the problem. The one doctor that I follow, but I'm kind of against the bias that he's taken with his narrative, but he does have a good platform because he's advocating for changes to the way we do healthcare, and it's called Health 3.0. And what he advocates for is taking the power away from hospital administration, dictating how doctors treat their patients with the healthcare dollars that we get. If we start giving doctors a lump sum and allowing doctors to actually treat their patients the way that's appropriate for their lifestyle and will benefit them the most, and in the long run, save long-term cost on chronic care. But everybody wants the changes and they want to see the change in the money right now. And they're not looking to the future with anything. And that's what's beneficial to the patient. So I'm really praying that after this nightmare of this pandemic finally begins to settle, that those are the changes in the directions that we go, because health administration has destroyed our morale, patient safety, patient care with greed. They don't look at patients as patients
People.
anymore. They're customers and dollar signs.
That's crazy.
And we are sick of it down here.
So because of that, because they thought we couldn't pay, they kind of sat on their hands with this transfer and it fell through and we lost the bed. Now, the person that was supposed to call us at 9:30 in the morning to make sure things were happening was the ACNO, the Assistant Chief Nursing Officer, and he didn't. We called him at 10:30, no answer. Until 1:50 in the afternoon did we get a phone call from him back to get things started, when we have been waiting since morning. And everybody knows who's trying to transfer somebody, time is of the essence. We have to get him there before that bed is gone, you know? And that's exactly what happened. So that day we were upset he didn't get transferred. I went to go visit him during a 30-minute time slot. That's all I get is 30 minutes. And he walks in with another RN and took up 25 minutes of my time arguing over crap that has happened so much that it upset Alvaro. He was on a paralytic. And by the time they walked out, he had tears streaming down his face.
Patients can hear. There's some, I mean, so many times I had a nurse no, it was my director out in Jersey had told me that she had placed I can't remember what the Jewish name is for the little hat that they wear. I'm
Yarmulke?
sure, yeah. She had placed it back on his head. It was during a code, and then they were taking him to the cath lab when they got him back. And he remembers her placing it on his head. And they had him, you know what I mean? So that's what I was going to say. When I was at UMC, I had taken care of a patient after a cardiac surgery, and we were waiting for her to wake up, but we couldn't get her off sedation because she would get really agitated. And sometimes we just yank and pull the tube on those patients because obviously they have some fight in them. And, you know, if we've tried numerous times and we can't pull the tube because they get agitated, then we just pull it because they can quite literally breathe. But she
That's
remembers
what we were
me
trying to do
educate.
on
Well, there's just times you're like, okay, this is a patient with a strong drive to breathe that just wants to quit breathing through a straw. All the numbers look good until you take off the sedation. And at that point in time, it's anxiety, you know. But I was walking, I had talked to her family all night and was educating on the process of the spontaneous breathing trials and stuff like that we do to get them off. And I walked down into her room on the telly floor. I was doing my breathing treatments, and I knock on the door and I'm like, you know, so-and-so, it's Misty from respiratory. And before she even saw my face, she's like, I remember your voice. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, because I remember her 2 days ago struggling to get off that ventilator. So they can hear you. And to even upset them at the bedside and know that you're upset, fighting for him is more stressful. And that is so against everything that we do in healthcare. And I am sorry that, and on behalf of all of us with a compassionate heart that go into this for the patient and the family, I am truly sorry because this is not how we practice healthcare.
Well,
It's
I appreciate that, but you all should not have to be apologizing for the ones who are dropping the ball. You know, one of the nurses today came to my side as we were crying, and I said, you know, Dr. Yanis didn't call me. I'm still waiting for him. I stayed up all night, you know, and that has been a common thread in my life, is waiting on Dr. Yanis to call. And she kept saying, you know, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I said, please stop apologizing for him. You're not the one being unprofessional. He is. You know, at what point did we make it acceptable just because he's a tenured physician at that hospital? Why are we letting it be okay? Every single nurse, every single person I've spoken to, everyone on administration have said, oh yeah, Dr. Yanis has a poor bedside manner and he's kind of a pessimist. Why is this okay?
Well, that's another thing.
Go?
Whole body health is important. A patient's mental health is directly affected by how strong and, you know, willed and encouraged he is to fight. If he keeps hearing all this negativity around the bedside,
right.
Oh my God. I am just flabbergasted that this person is even allowed to be at the bedside.
Which is why I wanted to counter that with my children's laughter, and they refused to let me take my phone in. So today, when it was dire and I did, they said nothing until I guess somebody tattletold on the group that we posted a picture of the monitors, not even the patient, nothing. I was going to save those videos that I was taking of my husband just for my children because he is very
because that's your
acidotic.
memories. That's
He's
quite literally all you're going to have left.
Right. And instead, I was met with cruelty and with threats to have me escorted off the premises. Like I did a crime. It, what the hell has this become? Where are your priorities? This is supposed to be about the patient.
It is. And unfortunately, the way that this pandemic turned out, and the reason I started speaking up, and my followers will tell you that as science has changed and I've been witnessing things, my outlook has changed. But I do agree that this is the biggest scamdemic ever, but not for the reasons that everybody wants to put for conspiracy theories. It's because it's all being billed to the federal government and there's a money grab thing going on right now. And everybody's out to make their dollar, and we have forgot about the patient.
I
And
have been told by several that hospitals are losing money because of COVID. Is that true?
no, my girlfriend's son that works for an HCA facility in San Antonio, it's the most profitable HCA facility in the entire network that they have. And HCA is the largest for-profit healthcare system in America. And I did a TikTok on them because the CEO, his first year at the helm, made like 26 million, while all of us working for them were slaving and not being paid for a pittance and doing all his hard work. But they actually made the most in their history last year.
Wow.
So no, they're not losing money. They're not.
Okay.
That's
I
a
do
lie.
have another question for you since you're way more knowledgeable than I am about this. Because LMC doesn't employ a pulmonologist, I guess, on staff, they're consultants. Do they get paid by the patient?
I am not sure how the doctor's contracts are written. It's going to be different because it sounds like they're, they probably get more than likely something like that. There's probably some reimbursement related to that. But it would all depend on the doctor's contract. And without knowing what the doctor's contract with the hospital is, there's really no definitive way to say that. I can tell you that when I take a travel contract, it's just it's a flat rate with my hours, but a doctor, because of their level of care, is going to have a completely different, because he's part of a practice in the community that they employ. So there are other pulmonologists. And here's the thing, because I asked this question, because I'm like, why does the hospital keep dealing with this guy? Because this is not the first, and this is why I'm so upset, because this is not the first case. We had a guy that was put on an, I think it's an LVAD. It's a temporary blood pumping machine after heart surgery. But my girlfriend Loretta can attest to this, because there was no indication really to put him on it. And even the nursing staff was like, why did they put him on this? Because that's when his problems began. They created more problems. And we're like, why did you put him on this? There was no indication. And after they took it off, his body had taken such a hit that it led to his death. And I really was rooting for the guy, because he woke up. And in the very beginning of this, most of my patients had neurological impairment. Like, they would turn off the sedation 2 to 3 weeks prior. And when they finally start coming to, they are so obtunded. You're like, what is going on? And now with this variant, what I'm seeing is a reduction of that effect. I actually have more patients communicating with me, able to express their desires. And I mean, this lady brought tears to my eyes when I got to San Antonio, because she was the first patient I had discharged who had been on a vent and got to go home alive. And then I had another one. So this big fear with the Delta variant, we were told with the UK variant last year, it was less deadly and twice as transmissible. Well, that's the same thing that's going on with this. And as people are becoming exposed, the effects that I was seeing in the beginning that were so alarming are beginning to reduce. And we're seeing that with the symptoms that are a primary with this variant as well. It's more like a common cold instead of losing smell and taste and all of that. So things are changing. They are improving in certain ways. With the pessimistic attitude that is put in front of us, it's obviously impairing a doctor's judgment and other people's behavior to just continue to be negative, when that directly affects the patient in the long run. They're the ones who matter.
Because I've been trying to remove him from the start, one of the arguments we had across my husband's bed with the ACNO what he kept saying, there's nobody else. I go, there's Dr. Wang, there's Dr. Wang, there's Dr. Mamadi, there's Dr. Delis. Like, there
I
are
liked
other
Dr.
doctors.
Wayne.
And so as soon as I said that, he literally said, none want to work with you. And I say, me or my spouse? This has nothing to do with me. You know, you need to understand that I'm trying to find the best person who believes he's going to survive, not one that already gave up.
Yeah. And this is ridiculous. And it's not, you know, and if nobody wanted to work with you, then you should have filled out the paperwork very quickly. Like when a patient wants to leave AMA, we're like, no, please stay. Here's the papers, you know, please go. Because if they're that difficult and want to go somewhere else, we were like, go, please. You know, if that's what you want and that's the way you feel and you're willing to take the responsibility and the cost, go, please. We want you to do what you feel is best.
Right.
To hold the patient hostage and then prevent you from seeing him is
or giving
ridiculous.
Me vitals over the phone.
Yeah, because there was a patient up in Dallas area when I had my assignment up there during the snowpocalypse down here, who was a prominent member in the community. And his wife would come in and her and I would sit and chat at bedside, and she would thank me for all the, you know, advocation that I would do for her husband and working him to try to breathe on his own. And he would show me pictures of the kids. So when he was able to communicate and use his cell phone and FaceTime his kids from his hospital bed, that meant a lot to me because those kids, you know, at least if something went wrong, can remember that experience with their dad. Exactly. And to deny your children that, it's not just you, it's your children. You're advocating for all of you. And when you're throwing up roadblocks and not allowing people to do their jobs and censoring them, and you, because you don't want them to post on social media, well, because they know you're doing a crappy job.
I was about to say that, you know, people are saying, you know, you're making us look incompetent. I'm making you look incompetent, or you're acting incompetent. Like, come on, there's a difference. I am only recording what is happening to us. And I say us because he has a family. It's not just him. He has a whole life, a whole family outside of that hospital. So I put up pictures all over the room so the staff, when they walk in, they can see, hey, these are the people that rely on him to come home. You know, and that may or may not happen. I have faith that he can come home. I want everybody who is around him to have that same belief, or fight like hell until he's gone without walking in already defeated. That's all I'm asking. Communicate and believe he can come through this. Maybe you've seen it all. Maybe I understand his situation is critical, but if there's even a tiny mustard seed of faith that he can come through this, I want that for him. You know, there are miracles out there.
Yeah, and to have a doctor who has given up all hope on anything to do with getting better is completely negative.
Yeah, I feel like his attitude has been pessimistic from the start. It's not going to change now. So what does the hospital have to lose? What does he have to lose by trying things that you don't think work?
Yeah.
Just try something. And they haven't even proned him. We've been asking him to be proned from the start.
Which is pretty standard of care at this point. If you are able to prone and self-prone and flip over, we highly encourage that. And that's not something I was seeing much of there, but I was everywhere else. That's the first thing, even on the floors, we're encouraging patients to self-prone, and we even put like signs on the outside of their doors so it reminds us of when to flip them. And then what's also happening is they're leaving them face down too long, and they're developing pressure sores on their face, on the end of their nose is like rubbed off because, you know, 16 hours prone is not, no, that's not, no. 8, no more than 12 usually, but 16 is pushing it. You know, we usually have things called rotoprone beds, and we usually use those in the flu patients with ARDS because it helps to move the fluid and it keeps the patient moving, but we stop it twice a day. and we move the tube and we clean the face and we change things, and but it's continuously moving. And when you have a patient face down like that, all that fluid winds up making its way there. So now you've just transferred the problem from one side to the other instead of continuously moving it to keep it from becoming one. And
my biggest questions were why they kept him on the vent when he was clearly could have maintained on BiPAP at those levels being so low. Why they didn't prone him then when he was stable enough to be proned. Once he threw his first pneumo, he was too unstable to prone. He had a chest tube now. And then after that, it's just been downhill. So I'm still praying he comes through this. I can't lose faith. But
I know, don't ever lose hope, because if you lose hope, you've completely given up. And all I say is it's not, I mean, I have seen I do not predict and guess things anymore, but there's just a time when and with you not being there at the bedside and being able to see him, it makes it kind of hard for that to be a reality for you. You still remember the man who was fine one day, and then you get a phone call about a central line the next, and you're like, wait, what? So
exactly.
This is traumatizing. I mean, this country at this point in time is completely traumatized. They are reacting off of fear. We have lost the ability to use logic and reason. I've seen medical professionals lose the ability to use logic and reason. I'm just like, what are we doing? Because this is not how we do healthcare. This is not how we science. This is not how we treat patients. And unfortunately, there has to be victims and collateral damage for something to change. But it's happening in such a mass casualty that the whole nation is traumatized. The whole world is at this point. There's been so much happen.
On our group called Alvaro's Army, I shared something, a very vulnerable side of me, to everybody there who's praying for him. And I just said, I believe that if anything comes out of this experience, that it is that God is trying to use me to be an advocate for others who can't advocate for themselves at this point, because I have been as strong as I can be. I have faced intimidation, harassment, roadblocks, icing me out of vitals, discrimination, all of the above, and I still go back every day and try for my husband. I try. So I feel like if we come through this, no matter how we get to the other end of it, I feel like this experience is going to shape the rest of my life, and I want to be able to help others that don't know how to ask the questions. The chaplain who was in that first administrative meeting told my mother-in-law how impressed he was with my questions and how I wasn't afraid to say, don't insult my intelligence to a doctor. And he said, this is the first family that has really advocated for their family since the beginning of the pandemic. Yeah. He said to my mother-in-law, your daughter-in-law truly loves your son, because this is the first family who has come and had a meeting and said, hey, what you're doing is not right. So that shocked me. It shocked me, because more people should have said, hey, what's going on over there? Why aren't we hearing from the doctors?
So many people are scared to speak out anymore because they're afraid of, like, I was reading about a hospital system up in the Midwest that had to increase security, I think in Wisconsin or something, because of the threats and the terrible things of just what they're saying to healthcare workers. It's pretty damn negative. And healthcare workers are quite literally being threatened over things. And people are afraid to speak out because they're being canceled. People are calling their jobs, they're acting insane and participating in this cancel culture instead of addressing the real root of the problem, which is the exposure that we're seeing that propagates this behavior and this narrative. And it's like, I had really hoped, because in El Paso, after the Walmart shootings, our community came together in one beautiful way. It was just the best outcome and experience that could have taken, a place in the midst of that tragedy. And I really hoped that, like the rest of the country, when we went into this pandemic, could learn about what that love could do. And it was like, oh God, this is not what happened. It was like false hope there. And it really bummed me out because El Paso was a beautiful, and even there now, this year, we have had so much violent crime, so many insane accidents, and so much violence that we normally don't have. It's a very peaceful little border town. And that's what Laredo reminded me of when I was there, was a smaller version of El Paso.
Yeah.
It's a small town right on the Rio Grande. I follow the Rio all the way down from El Paso. But there is a huge immigrant population there as well. A population is majorly Hispanic, and as we know, with this virus, Hispanics and Black are at higher risk. And to treat these patients like this based on status of pay is against the law. Those are against patient rights that we have to learn.
I can't prove it. I can't prove that that's why he's being treated that way. I have a theory. I have a lot of theories at this point, but I feel like me and my family, I call my Alvaro's Army my extended family, because they have been with me since day one of this mess. And they have
huge.
seen the pattern too. They have seen a pattern too. And they are the ones who
share the group so other people on my side can follow it, so they can follow your story as well. Okay. Because I think that's important. I mean, and what's amazing with my followers is they will I'll be catching comments on certain articles that I am reading out in let's see here, copy link. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I post this in both places. Depending on which platform I'm using is where I can post. But they really support one another, and it's like, it really makes me happy that I see that kindness that I try to push into people spreading throughout other people. And it's like, it's I was telling you last night, even if things do take a tragic turn, the outcome and the support and the platform and motivation to make changes is, you have this amazing tribe of people behind you. And as we find each other to help,
I don't know how this
it's
happened.
amazing. I know.
I was talking about this with my mother-in-law. Most of my support from what I call my extended family started with my dog's page. My dog is kind of famous. His name is Blueberry. He has a lisp, and we have over 10,000 followers on his page.
Oh my gosh.
All those people kind of fell in love with my family because we were so open and sharing his puppyhood to adulthood, and they got to meet the kids, they got to meet me, and we did videos, and we were just trying to bring some joy in this pandemic. We made him have a lisp so that it was funny when he spoke, a lot of my inspiration for him to be so silly I take from my kids. He says words wrong. I would say he, like he can talk, it's me. But he says words wrong because that's how Quentin would say things. He had a lisp like Noah in the beginning. Like, I take inspiration from my kids for this dog, and it just went viral. And all those people have seen my kids grow up now for about a year. And when tragedy hit, they were the first ones to send diapers and formula and food and
you guys
gift
are amazing.
Cards. They're amazing. I am so grateful and so humbled by their such pure hearts, just gold hearts everywhere, hearts of gold. And there are no words. I have no idea how this happened because of a dog,
My video gained popularity. I was ticked off. I'm from Michigan, and my video was directed to the people in Michigan acting selfish at the time. We didn't know anything about this virus. They were protesting their Second Amendment rights, and the Michigan militia is all political anyway. And I'm like, now is not the time for your crap. And until we get this figured out, please just wear your damn mask, because this is what I'm dealing with. I'm losing people left and right. And it got shared in a nurses group and went freaking apeshit. And then in the same time, I was telling my story about my marriage to my ex-husband, and now I do veteran advocacy. Uh-oh, I lost her. Hang on. I'm going to send her an invite again just to get her back. Did she come back? Are you back? Yep, she's back. Hang on. Let me click her. Here we go.
I'm
Are you there?
sorry. It
It's
went
okay.
out. I have no idea what happened.
Sometimes the stream just drops. It's okay.
Okay.
Um, but these folks just rallied around me, and I had felt so alone for so long. And then I'm like, I just keep gaining these followers. And I just shared a video on my PTSD page last week, and it was not my artwork, but it was in a tribute to one of the Marines that were killed. And it got like 1.5 million views based off of my page. And I'm like, how does this happen? And I keep getting messages from folks that I don't see on the public, but they open up in the private messages, and you just build this bond with this amazing group of people, and you realize that there are good people out there, and social media can be used for a good thing. It's just hard to find everybody, and when you do, you really resonate with those people because you
Yes.
know that these are folks with good intentions, and we all want to
It's
see that because we're all craving that kind of love right now.
yes, and I feel like I have social media can be a double-edged sword.
Yes.
It can be a weapon for you, and it can also work against you. Once I posted a little story on TikTok, dear Jesus, they are brutal. Now his video
Yeah.
has 9.3 million views right now.
Whoa, you're gonna have to share that with me so I can share it with
I
mine.
I will, but I had no idea it would take off like that. But you have people saying, he's going to come through this, pray, don't give up. And then you have people saying he didn't get the vaccine. He should be dead already. He doesn't
We
deserve
could
health
thank
care.
Jimmy Kimmel for that kind of attitude,
He,
like, yeah.
yeah. And it's just like, I get more brutal comments. One of them said I gave COVID to my husband on purpose for views, so I would get famous on TikTok. And I said, yeah, okay. One of our followers was like, so you carry it in your pocket or what? Like, what?
So my advice is there are certain areas and you have to kind of protect yourself. And sometimes I only read the comments when I'm in the mood because if not, I wind up booted off Facebook for 30 days because I cannot
Yeah.
keep my tongue quiet. But I just don't read the comments. I don't because here's what happens in your comments. All your followers, they know that you don't need that and they will go after that person for you and you don't even need to mind
I
because
have
those
such
people
a
have your
great
back.
support group. Yes, they're vicious, but they're lovely people. I
Yes, they
love
are. And
my
mine are
support
too.
group.
And if you go and say some ignorant stuff to me, you're going to have an issue with my followers. I had a
Yeah.
doctor that was friends with my ex-husband or something like that, and he thought he was going to run my name through the mud on Facebook without knowing the situation. And he was very much wrong about it. And my followers went and slaughtered him. I never
That's
heard another word.
that's
So
awesome.
I don't even have to worry. They go after my stalker crazy lady because she tried to. My marriage has been a freaking nightmare, and it's not completely because of my ex husband. It's because of a crazy friend of his who
Oh
was
Lord.
was anonymously stalking us up and other relationships until I caught on to who it was, and then yeah, so now she's just like, oh crap. But I don't even let her bother me anymore because I don't even have to worry about it. She tried to destroy my reputation, so did he. It didn't work, and I'm just like, whatever. The truth comes out if we wait and we just be patient instead of That's where not reacting off of emotion is so important, especially with trauma. Is you want to take time to process that response because I'm going to guarantee you what you initially want to respond with versus what you wind up responding with are two completely different things because you thought through what you want to
Right.
say and like, okay, I've blown off the anger and I've rehearsed it in my head 9 million times now. Um, this is what I'm going to do to handle it. So it's all in how you handle things. And it's really important for you to work together and have that support from all sides. And for this
Right.
doctor to do this, I am just like,
I
I'm
don't think they have
flabbergasted.
any I don't think they have any idea of how
I don't think
big
they
of
really
a
even.
following there is right now. I don't
Yeah,
think they
I think they're
know.
getting ready to figure it out because I'm not gonna um I'm not gonna stay quiet about this.
I
And
appreciate that. I feel like what
and
I experienced today, especially, was like the nail in the coffin.
yeah, Yeah.
could not. Today was my breaking point. I have given as much grace as I can to this staff, and today was enough. I still don't have access to the portal. I don't know what meds he's on. I don't get calls. I call in, they don't answer. I asked for the doctor to call me, and well, it's 8 days.
My friend's
Before I get an
amazing
answer.
wife, she would go into that freaking hospital room, and she's a little Puerto Rican woman, and she is a spitfire. I love her to death. Um, she's my sister from another mister, but she would go into that ICU because he developed some pretty insane pressure sores, and there's only one way that they get pressure sores, and it's from lack of moving the
Turning up.
patient.
Right.
And you have to move them, especially if we don't have rotoprone beds. You continuously have to move the patient, and it's just the complete disconnect. And us in healthcare, we are already discouraged and short staffed right now. It is not a bed availability issue. We have the ability to make more beds within the hospital. We don't have the staff. We haven't had the staff since last year. More people are
Right.
leaving because of the insane things that are happening, the healthcare worker bashing, the mistreatment from the hospital administration. Now we have mandates. I mean, it's just getting insane. And
Right.
it's just, this has got to stop. And it's like, where is the end point for this? In the meantime, like this morning, I was watching a TikTok of a gentleman who is telling the story of his wife's ovarian cancer. She had
Mhm.
had 2 strokes, so she's got a missing part of her skull, and she's got many deficits on her left side. And he's in the car screaming, just in tears, because bills, mortgage, kid, healthcare. He's got everything on himself right now, and he doesn't have this army. He does now. I'm going to tell you that much. So social media, people are reaching out that way, and that's how we're finding each other and helping one another in those ways. And it's been amazing that way, but the trolls that it brings out,
Right.
it's like it just brings out this negative side of people. And I'm like, you just need some love in your life. Like, you just need to be loved. Like, seriously. There's so much rock
Agreed.
hardness and coldness in people, and they
Well,
just need love.
I want to extend my gratitude definitely to you for helping me get my story out there for my husband's sake. For anybody who's about to go through this, I hope this sheds some light on what you need to be doing to protect yourselves and to protect your spouse. Not be quiet, ask questions. I want to extend my gratitude to Alvaro's army. Literally, we made a list of where everybody's praying from. We have people in all 50 states, on all continents except Antarctica. Globally, Alvaro's name is being lifted up in prayer. And
It's amazing.
I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. If anything comes out of this, I hope that his legacy is a positive one in the sense that he helped change the way things are done from this point forward.
I'm not sure
I'm gonna
if
have to I'm
you,
gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go now
okay,
because the baby's getting fussy and I'm gonna have to change her in a bit. But
okay,
I appreciate you so much.
not a
Thank you from
problem.
the
And
bottom of my heart.
if there's any updates, we will do another live so everybody can join in. And thank you guys for supporting her. I'm going to go ahead and bring you backstage and let you go. And I'm going to finish up. Okay, honey?
Okay, thank you.
Already. Oh, here's Rose, guys. The cats are like, Mom brought her suitcases home. We're going to crawl around in it. So thank you all for supporting her. If there's anybody else's story that needs to be told, I really do want to talk to people. We need to start banding together and standing up for kindness and allowing, our governor passed that bill to allow patient families at the bedside because of these situations. It's traumatic to the family. It's like being in solitary confinement because they can't leave their hospital room. They can't wander down to the vending machine. There's no group room for COVID. I mean, they're literally imprisoned. And when I was in Dallas, there was a kid there who had been on high flow oxygen and BiPAP at night for 35 days, stuck in that room. That's a jail sentence, folks. And the food is horrible too. I mean, don't get me wrong here. So this is not okay. It's quite literally being imprisoned, and we need to start looking at this from a realistic standpoint and banding together and speaking up for these things. Because if I wasn't going to Alaska tomorrow, my rear end would be in front of Laredo Medical Center protesting. And if this is still a shit show when I get back. That's exactly where I'm going to be, because this is not going to continue to happen. And this is not the Laredo that I knew last year. So it tells me that they've lost a lot of good people since I was there last year. And please reach out. Be polite. Don't be cancel culture behavior here, but voice your frustrations. Call Governor Abbott's office for us and talk to them about what's going on. They're violating the House bill. They're taking away her rights as her next of kin with advocating for her husband. They're not giving her the information that she needs to make those things. So, Worf, get out of my headphones. So we really need to focus on doing things like that are beneficial and helpful, not harmful. I do not advocate for the crazy cancel culture violence, but we really do need to start speaking up. How are they going to know the patient's status, or all they doing for their family, or if they don't allow families to see it, or at least be told? Yeah, you have to inform the families. It's vital. I mean, you can't make good quality decisions if I don't have complete patient information. I can't make my clinical decisions based on what's best for the patient and the situation if I don't have the whole picture. That's why medical background is very important. So thank you guys. If you start following me and there's somebody else who my followers send me, you can ask them. I am available morning, noon, and night. I am a night shifter. I answer questions. This is what I do for people. I cannot in good faith take money from people who are stuck in a hard place and looking for trustful information. I don't try to share misinformation. I share my feelings. I notice patterns of behaviors and link the two together. And that's kind of what I do. I don't have a hate for healthcare. I used to love my job up until this pandemic. And we saw you see what's going on in healthcare. It's all about the bottom line at this point in time. And that's not why any of us went into healthcare for the most part. So you guys continue to stay strong. I am part of, I don't want to say it wrong, Alvaro's army. I was trying to remember how it was spelled. But I did share the group. So any of my followers who want to join, when you answer the questions, just let the moderators know that you follow me and you want to join with the support. We need all the support we can get for these folks. These families are suffering, and I want to be able to use my platform also to share their story. And TikTok can be a great platform to share an emotional story because you got music to go along with it, but people are also very freaking vicious. So yes, I am on TikTok. It's under RT Says What. That's kind of my moniker after my little rant. So that's my TikTok. My Facebook page is the same thing. I have an Instagram, but I also have an Instagram under my own personal account, because when I get banned and censored on these platforms, I have to go over to other ones. So I am creating a Rumble and Reddit and probably a Discord, because when we get censored for talking truths on here and trolls reporting videos and then violating standards, I have to go to other platforms. So it's insane right now for us in healthcare. Anybody who doesn't go along with the general consensus is being censored as misinformation. And it's very much not, because we've never completely agreed in the medical field ever. That's the great thing about science. It's not 100%. You keep testing hypothesis, and we're not being allowed to do that. And we can't have these things. And we have other people out there suffering trauma that we've already experienced, and now we're putting them through this, and I am not okay with that. So big hugs to you all. I'm going to finish reorganizing my suitcases because I am on a plane to Alaska for 10 days tomorrow. So you'll be seeing pictures of me from Alaska, and I can't wait because I'm really craving some crab legs after this past year and a half. So you guys have a great night, and thank you for joining us.